Morning, everyone. Hi, Alexandra, Art of Cafe, Zixarthi, Vikia, Ciao Daniele. Hi Tyler, hope you're well. Hope you're looking forward to this afternoon's adventure. Morning Socrates. So I'm going to start inking this Goblin piece, which is actually kind of a commission for a friend. So it's been on the easel for a while, and I thought, having checked with him, I thought I'd apply the sort of inking while live on YouTube as something interesting, hopefully, to do. So fire away any questions or comments and I'll try and answer them while I'm inking. It's Art of Cat Clout, is it? They're Japanese brushes, I think, or Chinese, I'm not sure. I think they're Japanese, but I think the ink is Chinese. And the paper's Italian. And this one I've tried to go a bit heavier with the pencil lines because I'm hoping that I'll be able to retain them a bit more for the final sort of steps of it. I'm hoping that they show through a bit with the weight of the ink over the top, if I can get it right, which is not always the case. Spaghetti Slim. Do I have a favourite book for anatomy? Not anymore, I don't think. I did have a few sort of go-to books a long time ago, but I'm not even sure if they're readily available. I know one that I used a lot was the Bridgman Book of Anatomy. I'm not sure of its actual name, but everyone knows of it as the Bridgman anatomy book, so that was a pretty good one. But a lot of it, I also looked at Gray's Anatomy, which is like a medical one, which was quite interesting, mainly because you can sort of it goes a lot deeper than just the superficial muscles, so you can get a good grasp of the layers of muscles and then skeletal sort of anatomy as well, and also how there's muscles that you don't see on the surface or just beneath the surface, but are integral parts of holding the skeleton in place and moving it around, if you know what I mean. So that was quite useful, Gray's Anatomy, but it's quite medically specific, so it's not an ideal go-to for an artist, I don't think. Alexandra, probably a beginner. Well, the ink doesn't erase the pencils as long as I don't sort of overwork it. Actually, what it does is seals the pencils in. So as long as you're fairly sort of light with your touch on the first application of this like thin wash that I'm doing now, it actually helps to seal the pencils and stop them moving around. So it's quite useful in that sense. Faces, a couple of people asking about how they can work on faces. Well, I think the key is to treat it like any other sort of area of the body. You've got to focus on initially a sort of an anatomical sort of understanding really of what's going on. So like this skull I've currently inking, I don't really need to look at reference now for skull. They're not exactly perfect, but they're close enough for what I need. And understanding where muscles attach and how they attach and how far elements like the the jaw can move, how the jawbone articulates on the skull there, where the teeth attach and how they attach. All those sort of elements can help you understand the sort of anatomy of the face, and are really key in being able to draw faces eventually without reference. Obviously, that seems to be the goal for a lot of people, but I would say you've got to really practice with reference first to get a grasp of it. Don't sort of obsess about being able to do these things without reference. It's not always the best way to learn. You need to learn from reference first, and then build up a visual library that you can draw upon and sort of dip in and out of, hopefully without having to use reference each time. But any sort of practice is going to be helpful. Things like drawing your friends and family and life drawing classes, anything like that's useful. And I do think there are sort of sometimes neglected side of maybe concept art, especially, that people sort of stick a generic head on their concept design and then they're good to go, but really you lose the opportunity to bring a lot of character into your concepts as well. So I do think it's something worth pursuing and practicing. Drawing things, how do you think AI will affect the future generation of artists growing up? Do you think people will become less motivated to learn all the skills? Maybe, yes. At first I was a bit, as I said, I think on a previous stream, that I was a bit maybe blasé about this AI sort of phenomenon, but I think partially that's because I'm working predominantly traditional media, and so you feel maybe you're slightly not immune to the effects, but they don't affect you quite as much. But I think the worrying side of it also is the issues of sort of things from a legal standpoint as well, in that there's the fact that an artist's image can be used without his permission at the moment, and you're sort of people are putting them into these AI engines and then claiming it back as their own work. I'm not really sure. That seems a bit sort of insidious. That's not a good place to sort of for things to go from an art standpoint. I think one of the reasons I left Games Workshop was because of the lack of credit they were giving their artists, and I believe they still I'm not sure if they're even allowed to sign their artwork, so I had issues with that, in that you learn a craft over 20 years, The least you should be able to do is claim your right to, say that's yours and only yours, what you've created. So this question of AI in that sense is a little bit worrying, I think, as well. But I think people will always return to, or I hope people will always return to drawing, because I can't really see what satisfaction's to be gained from putting a few prompts into a computer and then saying, look what I did. It's not really, I don't know, that idea to me seems completely bonkers. There's no enjoyment there, just an instant fix. It's just an instant gratification, which is maybe, without sounding old-fashioned and a bit, grumpy and old man, but is it indicative of sort of the trend now, with everybody wanting everything as quick as they can get it, and instant fame, instant sort of, wealth, and none of the things I've done in my life can be done quickly. They've all been done very slowly, and it's frustrating at times, but I've stuck with it and got to a level that's of a decent level, and I'm happy with that. And that's where the gratification comes from for me, is learning and sort of going on this journey, really. Edge. Did I ever consider getting into comics? I did too. When I first started out, I tried to get work for a British comic who did Judge Dredd for a long time, 2000 AD, but without any success. And then I was picked up by a local company, Games Workshop, who were starting out a comic using quite a lot of artists who worked for 2000 AD, and they saw my work and got me on board to do a little strip, and so I did about 2.5 years of comic book work. I made next to no money and was incredibly slow and a bit rubbish, really, but I enjoyed it and learnt a lot, and worked with a fantastic writer called Gordon Rennie, created my own character with him, Cal Jericho, which was cool, and then I was sort of picked up by the design studio. They saw my work and liked it, and were looking for new artists, so they offered me a job in-house, which I took, and then never really looked back from there. Michelangelo. Yes, I did study from the Loomis books, and I did like them. They were very good, very sort of maybe a little bit 1950s, could you say, in the sort of aesthetic, but they were really a great learning resource for me. I think I got them all on as PDFs as well, because I struggled to find them as books at the time when I was looking for them. believe they were republished shortly after. But yeah, they're great books. Hi, Saman. Hey, Mike Babbage. Mike, yeah. Which US Comic Con will you be at next? I don't know, mate. It's travel's a bit tricky for me at the moment, so I'm not sure what the plans are. And obviously, with the I was traveling quite a lot with the guys from Super Annie, so I think I'll wait to see if they are interested in doing any cons this year, and if they are, which ones, and if there's any they'd like me to sort of be part of. So yeah, I don't know yet, though, is the short answer. I hope I get to do some. Samuel Smith. Maybe you should just have a bit of confidence, Sam, in what you're doing if you like the work personally. It really depends who's critiquing your work and if you admire what they do as well. I had some pretty bad critiques from tutors at art college who didn't really have much good to say about what I was doing or what I wanted to do, and it was quite disheartening and off-putting, and in the end I lost my way quite severely, I'd say. I sort of fell out of love with painting, and just because nobody really seemed to understand what I was trying to do. But you've also got to be a realist about what you're doing, and sort of a realistically welcome critique as well. If there's areas that you could improve on and somebody's critiquing you on that, then I think you need to sort of accept that and take it on board, because often those people have quite a fresh view of what you're doing, and sometimes you can be lost in the work, or as you say here, that you work's quite detailed, and sometimes that can draw you in a little bit too much into sort of your own little world that you're creating, and it doesn't always necessarily make for a great image. I've been guilty of that. I think all artists are guilty of that at some point, where you get kind of sucked into what you're doing and lose sight of the whole picture, if you know what I mean. So I think a healthy balance of the two, but don't get depressed about it. I get depressed and dissatisfied with my work regularly. It's just part of learning, I think, is that thing of pushing yourself and it not being how you want it to be, and being dissatisfied. That's just you striving to learn and improve. I think, you know, that's the sooner you welcome that into your artistic life, the better. I think, as hard as it is to do that there's going to be these periods where you're quite, you know, annoyed and frustrated and depressed about what you're doing, but recognize them as part of the learning process is quite an important step as in maturing as an artist, I think. Spaghetti Slim, I don't think everyone has to learn digital, no, not at all, but I do think it's a very useful tool, and I think anybody who draws will eventually naturally gravitate towards having a go at doing something digital. And, you know, I'm no digital artist at all. I'm no I know enough to get by, but I'm not good at it at all, really, in my opinion. But I've found it a very useful tool, and a very useful, you know, another medium I can use to help me create the images I'm trying to create, you know. When Alexandra, I've got 3 mixes of ink. So I've got a very thin watery ink, then I've got a thicker ink with a bit more opacity, well, not opacity but depth, and then pure black ink there. And then also I have a little sort of jam jar lid that I can take a bit out of and dip into should I need to. So yeah. Wei Kwang Dong, did you attend art university? I did attend art university, but to be honest, it was not a very good experience for me. I don't think it was the right well, I know it wasn't the right course, and it was in the wrong area, not a particularly nice sort of area with a very low ranking art degree, with tutors who didn't really have any interest in the style of work I was wanting to do. So partially on my part, partially on the tutor's part, it was a abject waste of time, and I didn't learn really anything. Only bad habits and laziness. So I'm really self-taught. It was only when I was fortunate enough to find myself in a position to get some work that I really sort of, as they say in England, knuckled down and started to really work hard to try and learn, you know, and improve. And that's hard to do. It's not there's no short journey there. You have to just do the graft and do long hours, you know, regularly would do sort of 12, 13-hour days, just mainly because I loved it, and so I'd work and then also sketch and go to life classes and you know, all the things that I knew would improve my work. Joe Lacey, I don't think drawing in your 30s is too late, no. I was really didn't start to really get anywhere until I was in my mid-20s. And I didn't really start to see big improvements in my work till my late 20s, after spending time around sort of great artists at games workshops. So people like Adrian Smith, Paul Dainton, Alex Boyd, you know, guys like that who were sort of really high level, fast, all with their own sort of take on things, meant you could learn a lot and sort of steal ideas from them and copy the bits that you loved and try to incorporate them into your work and things like that. So that was the most sort of exciting period for me of sort of learning, really. And then I think post that would be meeting Jungi and travelling with him and the other great artists they had on this, or have been fortunate enough to meet, like Peter Han, Nicholas Nemiri, Hyunjin Kim, who's the sort of CEO of Super Annie as well, and phenomenal watercolor artist, Victor Kalvachev, and I've been fortunate enough to meet some really great artists, and my friend Jesper Icing, and there's loads of them, too many to mention, but that's always inspiring, and to spend time with those sorts of people and learn from them and see what they're doing and see firsthand how they approach many things that maybe I do as a subject matter, or you know, as or a medium that I'm using, and each artist has their own take on you know, how to approach and how to get the most out of it, and I always find that really interesting. Miniature Temple, yes. Blackwing pencils were a game changer for me. I'd sort of, like you, I'd heard about them and not really used them, and when I did, I was really incredibly impressed with them. They're sort of they've got a depth to them, and that's hard to find in another pencil. The sort of blackness of the lead is, it just seems to have the perfect weight of, you know, density to the line, so you don't have to be pressing super hard and to make the lines sort of as dark as you want, but also they can be worked with quite subtly as well, and you know, they just seem to be a really good balance to me. Laurent, I think it's very academic, but I do think it's very important to learn those elements. You know, there's nothing wrong with learning that first and then taking it and sort of doing your own thing with it. You know, you just have to be patient and work through, do the graft, you know, do the work that's learning, and you know, as hard as that is some days and you don't feel like doing it, it's always worth to consistently do a bit of learning, you know, whether it's just half an hour a day. Michelangelo, how many years of serious self-study did it take to you? Well, I mean, I'm still working at it, to be honest, and I'm still frustrated by some elements of what I do, but oh, I would say it's I don't know. It's hard to put an exact figure on it. I had a basis, to be truthful, when I look back at my drawings as a kid, and there was something there. You know, it wasn't just something I've learned in my adult years. There was a skill there already, so it was just about tapping into that and focusing a bit more on it, and doing some much more specific work to improve areas that I thought were weaknesses. But I would say you're looking at, you know, I was at Games Workshop for 7 years. I would say working around those really, really good artists was the most, it was the quickest I learned. And I would say that was like a 4-year, super intense 4-year period where I improved quite a lot, quite rapidly. I prefer wood cased pencils, Prabhu. Savvy Sod. Hi, yeah. Have a nice day, you, mate. Yes, Bistrom, yeah. John Bowers at Illo's are great, yeah. And of course the great Paul Bonner, who I've met several times as well and know him quite well. He's amazing. So man, my streaming setup screen is vertical because it's on my iPhone, and I'm not really sure what to do because the image is portrait. So maybe next time I'll stream horizontal if you guys think it's better. I'm a bit of a Neanderthal when it comes to these things. Nick M, yeah, you could use black watercolour, yeah, definitely. Gamer NL, how many hours a day in your mid-20s? Mid-20s I wasn't doing much in my day. Maybe, well no, tell a lie, that was when I really probably first started to knuckle down. So I'd say maybe 10, then I ramped it up to 12, and at one point it was like I was doing like 13 hours a day just practicing, just because I don't know, I was kind of in the zone and enjoying it. But I don't think you can sustain that for too long. I think you have to give yourself like maybe like you can do that for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you have to kind of take a step back and sort of, you know, have an easier week. Otherwise you'll just sort of burn out. Mentorships, Alexandra, I'm not really sure about. I don't know. I've got so many projects on the go currently that I just don't know how I'd fit mentoring into what I'm currently doing. You know, it was a struggle to get on YouTube this week just because of the volume of work I'm catching up on post Christmas, you know. So I don't know. And also, as I say, I'm so bad with sort of digital content, really. I could almost do with somebody managing that side of it for me rather than, you know, me having to manage all of that. If someone set it up and literally said, right, you click this, talk in there, don't swear, maybe I'd consider it. But I don't know. Trying to do these things and manage projects and you know, I've got 9 oil paintings on the go in the other half of the studio, and it's just hard to fit into my schedule, really. Few people have mentioned it as an option, but I'm not really got my head round it yet. Isis, Ramun, any areas you feel you have any weaknesses? I've loads, yeah. Any you don't get frustrated with, just accepting them. I'm not a very good environment artist, you know. I'd like to be better at creating environments and narratives and sort of little storylines within my drawings. Often my drawings, sometimes I do it, I can manage it, but often they're just sort of a guy stood there looking cool or a girl stood there looking cool, and I get a bit frustrated when I do that every time, you know. I think, oh, come on, can't you at least try and build a story into the image? I think I need some kind of a prompt often to really do that, bring that sort of element into what I do. And so, you know, the sketchbook work is often just guys, either I've something that I've seen that's inspired me to draw it, or maybe, you know, from a movie or something like that. But I get frustrated that I'm not a better sort of storyteller, but then I'm become much more accepting of the fact that I'm very good at other things, and that's part. You can't be, you know, you can aim to try and be good at everything, but you have to at some point accept that there's going to be elements that you're stronger at and weaker at, and that's just a fact. And you can practice them and work at them, but don't sort of, I try not to beat myself up about them too much and stress about them. It's not really worth it. Marvin Marbles, Method Man. I liked some I liked Wu-Tang before I had kids. I can't play it so much now. It's a bit too sweary. But yeah, I was into sort of a lot of that hip hop around that sort of time, and still listen to it quite a bit, yeah. But I mean, it's quite an eclectic mix of music tastes. I'm not just into hip hop. It just happens that I think, you know, they go well on those reels I do and streams, not stream, the reels and the TikTok, and they just, and also people keep saying that they like the the music choice. So I feel a bit tied into it now. So, but yeah, I do like Wu-Tang. Is this Love Bistrum? Is this for something just kind of? It's a commission for a friend. So yeah. I don't know if you can pick this up on the camera, but this is one of the things about, this is a great paper I'm using, but it's a much more like a general use paper that takes inks quite well, but there's a couple of areas where I've touched it with my finger and it sort of lifts the surface and doesn't take the ink quite as well as it should. So should I have, well, if I'd used a watercolour paper, I wouldn't have had that issue. But the reason I've stuck with this one is that this paper takes the pencil lines much nicer. So it's sort of a trade-off, really. And one I'm happy to sort of live with, and it's a really good quality paper. It's just you have to be a little bit more sort of gentle and careful with it. Sorry, starting to waffle like a proper dad. How did you get so good at painting with so little? I've always been fascinated with it. Did you manage to master that type of art, like inking and painting, mostly grayscale? Well, actually at Games Workshop for quite a long time, we only worked grayscale. So I think there was some slightly bizarre hierarchy at the time where, when I first started, only certain artists were allowed to work in colour. They didn't maintain that rule for very long, having sort of took on people like Adrian Smith. It seemed a bit silly to do so, but so I did spend a good couple of years probably really sort of working almost exclusively or predominantly in black and white. So, and it's a really good way to learn. I think if you learn in a sort of academic system, they will make you work in black and white for, I don't know the actual rules, but a certain amount of time is dedicated only to work in black and white. And then once your tutor feels you're sort of getting somewhere with that, they'll allow you to move on to a sort of very limited palette. So it's a good way to learn because it teaches you a lot of control over tone and just how important that is, you know, before you even bring colour and value and, you know, the whole spectrum into your work. So that in itself, you know, was quite a good thing to be able to do at Games Workshop, you know. And also I think a lot of it is about confidence. After a while you sort of build up a confidence in what you're doing, you know. Oil painting I have on the go. Do you ship them to the client when they're done or scan them and keep the originals to sell to secondary market? Well, it really depends. I'm doing one currently which is for Magic the Gathering, which I will scan and then sell, hopefully, if it's a good card, because that's the frustrating side of working for Magic. You can do the greatest painting you've ever done, but if it's a rubbish mechanic in the game, it's not going to sell on the aftermarket. So I'm tending to take on less Magic cards at the moment, just because I'd rather do a nice painting of a good card, hopefully a good card. That's kind of up to the art director it's at their discretion who gets the good cards or not. And then hopefully, you know, 6 months to a year down the line, I can sell the originals. The other job, which is another 8 paintings, is cycling related. So it's my cycling art, as it were, and those are for a client, a fairly sort of high profile client who wants 8 images, and they will be given to him, and possibly with an exhibition when we sort of finally get them all done. So it's been an ongoing project, but I'm sort of finally feel like I'm sort of making good progress. And it's sort of, I've got 6 of them, probably at least 6 which are around halfway done, if not a lot more than halfway. So, and it's nice to be able to work on something where you get into a groove with it, sort of, you know, get on a roll rather than just doing a one-off piece, then leaving it for 6 months until another commission comes in. To work on something back to back like that's been great. So really sort of develop yourself, develop your style, and, you know, you can start to feel like you getting, I think that's one of the keys to progressing, is when you can do something consistently and repeatedly. And so all those things like, I don't know if any of you know the work of Nicholas Uribe, I think that's how you pronounce it. A phenomenal oil painter, but he's so good at doing, consistently working and consistently developing what he's doing. in his art that, you know, that consistency leads to experimentation and sort of development, and that's how another way you sort of progress as an artist, is that being in that position where you can constantly push and try not new things, but you know, you're trying to, maybe you did something on the last painting which was successful or you really liked, and to be able to hit the ground running and try it again on another painting or image is one of the ways that you start to find yourself progressing and developing, I suppose, what you'd call a style. I am waffling, aren't I? I'm sorry. Rick Rubin's new book. To be honest, I don't read much. I'm not a big reader. I tend to listen to music, watch TV, watch cycle racing, or sleep, or ride my bike. Love Bistrom, do you like doing all this fancy stuff? I don't mind it. I realise that it's part of what I'm sort of known for as well, and also maybe, you know, I have to accept that I'm a fantasy artist to a degree, but I don't really class myself as strictly a fantasy artist. I think I'm just somebody who likes drawing characters. I think that's the core of what I do, really. Whether they're fantastical or not, it's a sort of love of creating characters is what, you know, is my strong point, probably. So whether that be in a fantasy genre or you know, even in, if you look through the sketchbooks that I've got, you know, there's a mix of sci-fi, historical, fantasy. They're all sort of character-based observations, really. Not sure I'll get this bad boy finished today on this stream, but I've made some decent progress, I think. Yeah, Strathmore Bristol board is good, yeah. I've not tried clay board, I might try that one. How about make a habit about live sketchbooking? What do you mean, Rio? Do you mean how do you make a habit of live, or do you think I should do that? I'm not really sure. Have you ever done fountain pen works? I used a dip and a nib pen for quite a long time at Games Workshop, but I haven't used one in quite a while now. I think, I get most of the sort of effects and line that I like from the Pentel brush pens, Pentel Artist Sign Pen. There's a couple of other pens that I use every now and then, but that's probably enough for me. Oh, you want to make a habit about live sketchbooking? Um, well, just do it. I mean, the key is don't be precious. Don't stress if it starts to go wrong. That's the only thing I'd say about live sketchbooking. How confident are you? Are you going to be annoyed, frustrated if you start the stream and it goes wrong? Things like that. I mean, it's different for me. I don't know what level you're at, but I'm at a level where people want to see me doing something good, I think. So I've got to be careful. I'm not just coming on here and then going, oh, that's wrong, sorry. So you can be adding a level of pressure to yourself to do a great piece each time, but if that's not your goal, or that's not the point, then I'd say go for it. And also it's quite a nice way to get feedback from other artists and like-minded individuals. I always welcome feedback and sort of critique and things like that. So probably good, Rio. Yeah, just get on there and do it. Mask of Restrict, the Pentel. Yeah, it takes you a while to get your sort of the touch for it, but once you do, you've just got to really have super light, gentle touch every time you pick it up. Just remember, just be so light and deft with the touch. That's the one thing that I always noticed about Jungi when he worked. There was a moment where he seemed to sort of think about the line. I don't know if he was thinking about the image that he was actually producing, or obviously he's thinking about the placement of the line and what he's going to draw, but also line quality, I think, is one of his great, what was one of his great strengths. He had beautiful line quality, so it's something that I've tried to get more into my work. There's a quality of line that is definitely more me, and I like it, and it's something I want to sort of build into my work more. But when you use the Pentel, you've got to sort of just go a bit like Jedi on it and try to not be too heavy-handed in the outset. You can use it for great thicker lines and areas like hair and drawing fabrics, but you've got to really resist the urge to put any weight on it. You've just got to let it do its thing. Let the brush tip just lightly touch the paper. Don't give it any sort of weight, really. I think that's the thing I struggled with, is that naturally I'm quite a heavy-handed pencil artist, really. You like to sort of jab and, you know, press quite hard with the pencils. And that's really taught me to be a bit more deft and sort of light and think about what I'm doing first. Savvy Sod, have you ever been out a long bout of sadness, depression, that unable to draw, emotionally exhausted? Yeah, but I think for me, I'm in a lucky position that this is my job, so you know it kind of validates what you do, and it makes it easier to motivate yourself to get back on and do these things. And you know, if I'm frustrated or struggling with a piece, I'm lucky in that I've got several clients and differing sort of subject matters and things like that can help me to sort of keep things interesting and moving forward. So, you know, I'll often change it up in that way and do something totally different if I'm frustrated. But yeah, I've struggled and still do struggle, and you know, there's a lot of things happening in everyone's lives that make it, you know, not just about drawing and improving. And I think, you know, the key is that do it because you enjoy it, really. That's what I keep telling myself, you know, just keep doing it because you enjoy it. That's the main goal, you know, and I'm lucky to get paid to do it, really lucky actually. You know, can't ever sort of overlook the fact that, you know, shortly before my first, you know, paying job, I was looking at work in a pork pie factory nearby in the local newspaper, and what else, tinned dog food factory. And you know, I was that close to sort of, you know, giving up on it, really. So I'm always consider myself very fortunate to be in this position for however long it lasts, you know. Do you play video games? I used to play video games. Now I'm not allowed to because I'm rubbish at them, according to my son Art, who's way better than me at them. He got one of the Oculus, is it Oculus or Meta now it's called, 2 for Christmas, which I've had a couple of goes on. That's pretty spectacular and amazing. And but I think the last game I played any sort of extent was Red Dead Redemption 2. And then I think kids came along. I didn't have as much time to sit doing absolutely nothing other than, you know, amuse myself. So hey, Alexandra, yeah, Tom Fox. Yeah, I do know his work, and very good, very, very good. I think that's exactly right, Sam. And just remember that you enjoy drawing, and that's the main reason to do it. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting your pencils out and just having a play, really, enjoying it for what it is. I think keep things simple. I did do life drawing classes with a model. It's very, very useful. It's like gym work for artists, I have to say. If you were going to do if there's anything I'd recommend to really improve, is working with other great artists and life drawing. Absolutely 100%. It's just the easiest thing, because as a concept, is because you just sit down and draw that's in front of you. But it's also so difficult, and so many factors that you have to bring into play that you're maybe not aware of, or quite as in tune with when you're not doing it. That I think it's just invaluable. Guaranteed to improve you as an artist is going to live classes. How old were you when you got your first art job? Maybe 26, something like that? Yeah, VR sculpting, that's very true, actually. I'll probably try and get my son to do it, actually. He's quite adept with sculpting packages, so I might actually see if there's any good sculpting packages on there. The cat's meant to be cute, angry, and ugly as well. Like, if a Goblin was going to have a cat, it wasn't going to be the best looking cat, was it? There's a reference to a movie here as well. I don't know if any of you can spot it. I won't say it out loud. You've got to work it out. Yes, love Bistrom. Not a difficult one. Some wise guy, is my son interested in art? Not really. My daughter is more. He's good at it. Frustratingly, he's got a very good eye for it, but he'd rather really be playing video games. He does sit down and draw, and when he does, he's good. He's got a good eye for it. He's also plays D&D at school, so he's quite into the idea of doing maps and things like that for his D&D club, which is really good. I'm not going to push him into sort of doing art as a career, obviously. I mean, I could help him if he wanted to, but I would say my daughter Eva is more into it. She's sort of much more happy to spend time, just doing creative things. So, and she's very, very good, naturally artist. But again, being a dad, I'd say she doesn't do as much of it as she should. But that's just me being a dad, I suppose, as well. You can see the potential, and it's frustrating sometimes because, if she would dedicate a bit more time into it, she'd see the progress a lot quicker as well. But she's only 16, and there's plenty of time to, improve. Vico, have I ever used ZBrush? No. No, that's beyond my abilities as a digital artist. I don't really feel the need to sculpt things 3D to get the reference. I've done a couple of sculpts where I've actually made them out of physical sort of clay, so Sculpey it's called. When I was working on a couple of paintings, I made a head sculpt as a reference, and that was useful, and was things I could do that I suppose are very akin to what you could do on ZBrush, sorry. But it would involve me having to learn the program and the interface, and imagine your dad doing that. That's how I am. It's just a painful process to watch for everyone and for me to embark upon. So I just stick to the things that I'm good at, and should I need reference, I'll either shoot for photography or make sketches from life, or, as I say, if really needed to, I could do the actual 3D sort of physical sculpting. I'm adept enough at that to get something from it. Not brilliant, but it would do the job for what I needed. I have seen Del Toro's Pinocchio and I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Really, really good. And so nice to see stop motion done so well. I think another person I had the chance to meet was Shannon Tyndall, who directed Kubo, which I think was done by Leica Studios. That was another stop motion that was phenomenal. Really, really loved that. I love stop motion. Way back to the Harryhausen days as a kid of watching Sinbad and Jason and the Argonauts and all those sort of movies. Balan, yeah, I've got a few interesting projects on the go with Cool Mini or Not, a very big project I've been working on for, well, maybe most of last year or a good half of last year, and still on it this year, so that won't be released for some time, but we're chipping away at it, and there's a lot of sort of miniatures to be designed and sketches to be made, and then final art to be done. So that's really cool, a great company to work with. If you don't know their stuff and you're into board games and RPGs and anything like that, they do some cracking products. They've got a great art team on board, including my brother Stefan, who's very talented, and Adrian Smith and Paul Bonner, and loads of fantastic artists working for them. So they're a great company to work for. And then I've got cycling portraits on the go, as I mentioned earlier, Magic the Gathering cards. I've got obviously my sketch work that I'm trying to keep ticking over. We just launched volume 7, which is back in the store now, level up and signed. So that's a lot of work. If people order a level up, I have to do a sketch in it, and I'm trying to stay quick with those, but they do take me a certain amount of time. So that keeps me busy of an evening. Do you draw from films, Mitch? No, I don't really. Occasionally I'll see a character who I really like or in a film and make a study of it. Maybe I'll pause the iPad or whatever I'm watching it on and just make a quick sketch, but not regularly. Chill art talks, have a work with charcoal. That's probably one that I've worked the least with, I'd say. I've not really sort of worked in charcoal that much. I'm probably going to start rounding this up and finishing off now. As I say, I'm not going to get it finished today. The idea is here to have maybe a sort of light source, as if it's referencing again, as Love Beestrom mentioned the movie The Godfather, which I also did the box art for Cool Mini or Not. So I drew Brando in his office like this, with the blinds up at the window, but obviously this is a Goblin, so we're going to go for like metal barricade or something at his office window. So I'll try and get back into this live streaming, and I may change the days up, but I'll try and make sure I put notice on my Instagram if that's the best way to do it for you guys, and notify you all of any streams I'm thinking of doing, and keep promising to do an oil painting, which is a bit daunting, but maybe something to set myself as a goal, as everybody seems to want to see a bit of that process. So and obviously I'll upload the video afterwards to my YouTube, so it'll be on here and anyone wants to watch it back, and then please obviously like and share. It's try and get the channel to grow a bit, because it's all motivation to keep getting on here and doing regular slots. and different, you know, sort of approaches and media and things like that is sort of motivates me. So if you could hit like, as they say, share the love, and then we'll get back to it, and I'll be here for more waffling, dad waffle, and drawing and painting, I guess. So yeah, I'll probably leave it there. I can do a little zoom in if you want, and take the camera closer in so you can just see the sort of details a bit better. Just try not to overwork it really, which is always the difficult balance, I guess, with this sort of stuff. But it's also good to have a pause from it and just look back and see the areas that have worked well and not so well. Not so happy with this shoulder just here. Sort of lost a bit of its form, but I can go back in with some pencil and try and describe that a bit better. But there you go, you get the idea. Hope you liked it. As I say, the video will be uploaded, and enjoy. Hope you have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you next week, hopefully. Take care, don't drink too much over the weekend, get some drawing done, and see you soon.